Hey, I'm not surprised. Did you know that there is a fake toxicology report that is making its way online? Yeah, according to WAPT 16, Mississippi Public Safety Commissioner Sean Tyndall is telling the public that there is a fake toxicology report going around online. He posted this on social media. Quote, the purported toxicology report from Nolan Wells circulating through social media on various outlets is fraudulent.
The
Nolan's family
autopsy is complete. The report exists. And yet the public still doesn't know how 18-year-old Nolan Wells died. An 18-year-old football player goes out with friends on the 4th of July. He disappears on a remote island off the Mississippi coast. 2 days later, search crews find his body. His family gets an independent autopsy, and instead of an answer, they get one word that somehow makes everything harder. Undetermined. Not accident, not foul play, not suicide. Undetermined. And now we're being told the state autopsy is complete. So what did they find? That's the question nobody can answer for us yet. Nolan Wells was from Ocean Springs, Mississippi.
Another week, and we have more updates in the Nolan Wells case. The mysterious death of that 18-year-old college football player whose body washed ashore 2 days after he went missing while out on a boating trip on Horn Island, Mississippi during the July 4th weekend. This barrier island 10 miles off the Gulf Coast.
He was young, active, and surrounded by friends when he went out to Horn Island. This wasn't some lonely person disappearing in the middle of nowhere with nobody looking. There were boats, there were people, there were phones, there was communication, there were witnesses. And still, somehow, an 18-year-old ended up dead. The family's independent examiner couldn't determine exactly what happened. That alone should tell you how difficult this case is. Because when a body is recovered after spending time in the water, investigators aren't just looking for one obvious injury. They're trying to separate what happened before death from what happened afterward. And here's where it gets interesting. The condition of the body can complicate everything. Decomposition can change what investigators see. Water can destroy or alter evidence. Injuries that might have been obvious under different circumstances can become much harder to interpret. But there were still details that needed answers.
So Bruce Lind originally told CNN that there were no signs of physical injury, right? Preliminarily. The independent autopsy didn't find apparently any lacerations or gestures or deep tissue incisions or anything like that, other than they've talked about this red discoloration on the head.
One of those details was a red discoloration reported on the back of Nolan's head. Was it trauma? Was it decomposition? Was it something completely different? Nobody should pretend to know the answer before the forensic work is finished. And that's exactly why the state autopsy matters so much. Because the independent examination wasn't the end of the investigation. It was another piece of it. Now, you already know what I'm about to say. If the state has completed its examination, somebody has potentially seen more information than the public has. Maybe there's a completely legitimate reason the report hasn't been released. Maybe investigators are protecting witnesses. Maybe they're preparing evidence for a grand jury. Maybe releasing the details could compromise an active investigation. Fine, those things happen. But here's the thing, though. Every day the official answer stays hidden, the vacuum gets filled by somebody else. And we've already seen what that looks like. People online started creating their own explanations. Videos were examined frame by frame. Timelines were debated. Boats were tracked.
Best of all, that the boat was taking on water, the boat that Nolan had appeared to have been on at some point. And there was a video that came out where it does not appear that Nolan is on board at a certain period of time, meaning he potentially was on Horn Island. And we talked about the back and forth about this strange audio of the distress call where some believe you can hear people in the background suggesting that Nolan is in trouble or that he's dead. And I've spoken to an audio expert who cast doubt on that. I mean, there was one thing he said he wants to hear the original unredacted audio, but also said
audio was questioned. People started arguing about who was where and when they were there. Then a fake toxicology report began circulating online. That's not evidence. It's not proof of anything about Nolan's death, but it tells you something about the environment surrounding this case. People are desperate for an answer. So desperate that fake documents can spread across social media before most people even stop to ask whether they're real. And that's dangerous, because Nolan wasn't a character in an internet mystery. He was somebody's son, somebody's friend, somebody's teammate. And his family doesn't need strangers pretending they solved his death from a screenshot. They need facts. Now, let's go back to the timeline, because this is where the case becomes even harder to understand. Nolan was on Horn Island with friends. At some point, he disappeared. Search efforts followed. His body was eventually recovered 2 days later. There were reports involving a boat in distress. There were questions about video footage. There were questions about timestamps and what those videos actually showed. And this is where people started connecting dots. One video reportedly raised questions because the timing didn't appear to line up perfectly with other accounts. If a recording has one timestamp, but its metadata suggests another, which one is correct?
New video has come out. There is this footage here that was uploaded to Instagram by a user where you see the Mac Daddy boat, and that seemingly matched previously obtained and released footage. Now, notably, the person who apparently took this video says they captured this at 11:17 a.m. TMZ claims the metadata shows this was recorded at 2:23 p.m. Now, remember, the current account has been that those who were with Nolan saw him last at 3 p.m. And the footage, again, seemingly matches the older footage of a black male wearing those blue shorts that seemingly are the same ones that Nolan appears to wear in a photo that is circulated of him that day. So this new clip...
Maybe there's a simple technical explanation. Maybe there's not. But investigators have to know. Because when you're reconstructing someone's final hours, minutes matter. 1 minute can change a timeline. One phone call can change a timeline. One GPS location can change a timeline. One person's memory can change a timeline. And that's why I need you to stay with me here, because there's something about this case that genuinely bothers me. Forget the internet for a minute. Forget the people claiming they know exactly what happened. Think about Nolan's mother. Think about getting a phone call that your son is missing, then waiting, searching, hoping, and eventually getting the answer no parent wants. Your child is dead. And even after that, you're still waiting for somebody to tell you why. That's the part that hits differently. Because an undetermined cause of death doesn't close a chapter.
Just a microscopic report. They have that stuff. So, if you think about an autopsy report, very broad terms here, it's got essentially 4 components. You've got the physical gross examination that we do in the autopsy lab, right? Where we're looking at everything, we're examining organs and all of that. Then you have chemical testing, which is toxicology. It's going to be a broad spectrum report. We call it a standard panel. So you name the drug within reason. Okay, I'm not talking about some kind of exotic kind of thing, but within reason, drugs of abuse, prescription drugs. I mean, we even do aspirin. You'll see salicylates on there. Of course, blood alcohol is a big key here, right? That's something we're thinking about. And in
Toxicology testing, and look for microscopic findings that could help explain what happened. And in Nolan's case, additional examination reportedly focused on areas around the neck and throat.
Undetermined cause and manner of death. It was limited, right? It was limited in that it was reported what they had of Nolan's body, that Nolan's throat was not present. So it was believed that the state ME had kept those throat neck components for further testing. But now you're hearing this word.
That doesn't automatically mean foul play. Let me say that again. It doesn't automatically mean foul play. But it means investigators were looking for answers that the first examination couldn't provide. And now we're back to the question that keeps coming up.
They've got all these components, I think, and they've got a wide range of things to choose from. I would be very surprised if it was left undetermined at this point, considering how much time they've had to do scientific evaluation We're into August now, right? Okay. Even if you're doing consultations, let's say you're doing uh, a neuropath consultation where you're bringing a neuropathologist to take a look at tissues of the nervous system. Even if you're doing some kind of toxicology consult, you've had more than enough time to do this at this point, and they have had enough time to run the panels as well. So, in my opinion,
What
yes.
did the state find? Maybe the answer is drowning. Maybe toxicology reveals something important. Maybe the report identifies an injury nobody understood before. Maybe it finds no evidence of violence whatsoever. Or maybe the report itself doesn't settle the biggest question. Because here's something people forget. An autopsy can potentially tell investigators how someone died. It doesn't always tell them why. And it doesn't automatically tell them who was responsible. If someone dies by drowning, for example, the medical findings might establish drowning as the cause of death, but the circumstances surrounding that drowning could still require an entirely separate investigation. That's why the videos matter. That's why the phone records matter. That's why the GPS data matters. That's why witness statements matter. That's why the timeline matters. Every piece has to fit. And if one piece doesn't fit, investigators have to figure out why. Now here's another part nobody should ignore. This case has become so emotionally charged that people connected to Nolan have reportedly faced online harassment and threats. That's what happens when people stop investigating and start hunting. Somebody sees a video. They decide they found the villain. Somebody posts a theory.